Hi, and welcome back to TikTok Tuesday. This is episode 3, statistics. This episode is going to be brief. We're just talking about percentages, averages, numbers, all that stuff, all the data. And that's what statistics is. It's just a collection of data. So let's go ahead and jump right in. 1 out of 160 children ages 5 to 17 in the United States have Tourette syndrome. That's going to be about 0.6%. And then 1 out of 100 children also ages 5 to 17 in the United States has Tourette syndrome or another tic disorder, and that's going to be about 1%. Unfortunately, half of these children, about 50% of these children, are going to go undiagnosed in the United States. And with that also being said, this is a good segue for me to give a disclaimer. So in statistics or in any research studies, clinical trials, everything, they're not going to represent every single person. It's always going to be a sample size, whether that be 50 or 100 participants or 100,000 or a million participants, people that consent to the study to be part of the census. Does not represent every single person. There's always going to be exceptions. So like I said, with that being said, they're just the averages as close as we can get to representing everybody. But like I said, it's never going to represent every single person. So I wanted to go ahead and get that disclaimer out. Now I can go ahead and move on because I needed to make sure I said that because like I said, always going to be exceptions. Me being one of them, part of the 50% that went undiagnosed, that's me. Anyway, so males are 3 to 5 times more likely than females to have Tourette syndrome, and the ratio is going to be about 4 to 1. And white people are twice as likely to have Tourette syndrome than Black and Hispanic people. Like I said, doesn't mean that they don't have Tourette syndrome. It's just twice as likely because Tourette syndrome is genetic. It is inherited. That's probably just more of a European trait. And that's me generalizing that, so I didn't actually look that one up. Children ages 12 to 17 are twice as likely to have Tourette syndrome than children 6 to 11. I found that one very interesting because I guess it's kind of like it gets worse before it gets better. To me, is what it sounds like. Going beyond that, so one of my favorite articles is the one that I've referenced for my first episode 1, What is Tourette Syndrome? It's called Advances in Tourette Syndrome, Diagnosis and Treatment, and it was published in 2015. It's my favorite article, and it's an entire literature review. It just has facts and information, and it's easy to read. It's just all information is all it is. And I'm using that one probably the most in the data I'm about to read to you. So according to them, the prevalence of any neurobehavioral disorder or mental disorder for people with Tourette syndrome is going to be around 85 to 90%. And also, I forgot to mention this, I'm also referencing the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I looked up an article that they posted in 2019, so I'm referencing both of these to compare the data to, again, the disclaimer doesn't represent everybody. It's not always as accurate as we can be, but a lot of them were pretty close. So ADHD, the behavioral problems are going to be called, let me reverse back to what I was saying. These disorders or problems that co-occur with Tourette syndrome are called comorbid disorders. And that is also an episode that I'm going to include in probably a few weeks. I want to get more detailed with them. But here, again, I'm just saying what they are. I'm not going to define them. I'm just going to give you the percentages. And then in a later episode, we can talk about it more in depth. So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is about 50 to 90% prevalent for people with Tourette syndrome. That's a big jump. And the CDC more recently said it was about 63%. So a good middle in between. I thought that was refreshing. For Obsessive-Compulsive disorder, or OCD, the article Advances in Tourette syndrome referenced it to be 50% prevalent, and the CDC said it was about more than a third, so 33%. And another article that I looked up called Tourette Syndrome and Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, this was published in 2007, said it was about 30%. So if we're doing the timeline correctly, that article would be first in 2007 saying it's 30%. My favorite article being in 2015, said it was about 50%, and then the CDC came out and said it was about 33%. So again, not always completely 100% accurate. Anyway, for behavioral or conduct problems, this is going to be like oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, or conduct disorder, which is CD. It's going to be about 26%. For depressive symptoms, the CDC said that depression is about 25% likely. In the 2015 article, it said the depressive symptoms are about 76%. Major depressive disorder, MDD, or major just depression, I guess in general, 13%. And then for bipolar disorder, 7 to 28%, which is also a big gap. Can't represent every single person, just a big generality. For autism spectrum disorder, or autism, it's going to be about 35%. And for personality disorders, about 64%, which is, I also found very interesting. I guess if we're talking maybe borderline personality disorder or something along the lines of that. Maybe like obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, I could see that as well. Learning disabilities are going to be about 47%. You see these actually like more frequently than I thought. Learning disabilities in the classroom, really, and other things that just inhibit because of Tourette syndrome or because of your tics. Speech and language disorders, about 29%. Intellectual disabilities, which, if you don't know what intellectual disability is, it is referred to it used to be referred to as mental retardation. It has been renamed in the DSM, I don't remember which year, as intellectual disability, I think pretty recently. And that is about 12% prevalent. Anxiety is going to be 49%. The next couple ones are real specific, and forgive me if I can't pronounce this correctly because I'm still learning. Trichotillomania is going to be about 4%, and that is hair pulling. That is associated with OCD, which, again, can't wait to get more in depth in that because it's very interesting to me. Pathological nail biting is going to be 25%, also going to be a little bit more related to OCD. But again, these are all comorbid, so they all kind of run together. Again, not with every single person, just these are the averages that they would. And sleep disorders are going to be 65%. I think that's all the ones that I have listed from the article published in 2015. All these comorbid disorders are going to be overall more frequently occurring in people with Tourette syndrome than those who do not have Tourette syndrome. I don't know I tried to look it up on the article from the CDC, the percentage, like the difference, but I wish I could show the graph, but it's overall a lot more frequent. And one of the studies that the CDC referenced followed youth with Tourette syndrome, like a longitudinal study, so a long-term study, concluded by the time that those youth that they were following reached the age of 18, almost half of them, 47% of them, no longer had Tourette syndrome. So, with all the information that we now know, it's almost a 50-50. I want to say, if we're just really narrowing it down as generically and as broad as we can, about 50-50 in whether you're going to continue having Tourette syndrome in your life or when you're going to be diagnosed. Like I said, half of them go undiagnosed. And of course, all the comorbid disorders that come with it, some you're more likely to have than others. Doesn't mean you will or will never have them. That's just the statistics. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. It is over now. I just try to keep it, again, as brief as I can, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.